We go.
All right.
Good morning. I think there's maybe a couple people still streaming in, but it looks like it's going to be a pretty lightly attended session today. Hopefully you guys are awake enough to enjoy this. So my name is Mark Ramberg. I do business development on the Silverlight team at Microsoft. And so I just wanted to get up here and kind of set the stage before Nick gets started with his session. So, what we see, just to give it a little context, what we see is, HD video on the web is really gaining in popularity. And the need to monetize that content is really, again, growing rapidly. As that higher value content becomes available, you need to have solutions available to monetize that content. Microsoft has actually worked with a bunch of companies, Akamai, Panache, iWonder, a whole host of other ones, to put together some really great solutions to help you monetize that content. We really believe that going forward, even though today banner ads and companion ads and kind of display advertising is bringing in the bulk of the revenue, we believe that in-stream advertising is really going to be gaining in popularity as we bring this HD content to life through Silverlight and IIS Smooth Streaming. So, with that, like I said, we've worked with a number of partners. Nick is going to talk about some of the solutions that are available. One of the ones that is going to be focused on here today is Akamai's Open Video Player, which is a really great low-cost solution to bring monetization capabilities to your online HD video and analytics, ad connectors, in-stream ad insertion technologies and platforms. Some really great stuff. So with that, I want to hand it over to Nick Brookins from Akamai, and you're going to hear the good stuff from him. Thank you.
Great. All right, thanks a lot. I'm Nick Brookins. I'm a product architect at Akamai. I work on the Adaptive Edge product, which is our implementation of Microsoft Smooth Streaming. And we're going to talk about delivering ads to a Silverlight media player. So to start out with, I'll explain a little bit about what in-stream advertising is to begin with, some of the formats, compatibility issues, monetization, how to actually make money off of this. With the way the economy is, it's getting to the point where some technology companies actually have to have a business model. So if you find yourself with lots of visitors but no way to make money, then maybe in-stream advertising is the way to go. Or if you're in a position using traditional ad formats like standard banners, and you want to move to something in-stream, something a little more interactive, then this is the session for you. We'll look at some of the components that go into building a solution around in-stream advertising, go through some of the solutions and the workflow to create this, and I'll develop a little bit of a solution based on Open Video Player here and demonstrate it to you. So to start out with, what is in-stream advertising? A loose definition of this would be advertising that's delivered through a media player on your page. So there are two central types of in-stream advertising. First is linear ads. So linear ads are the types that are presented before, during, or after the content. So this is like a television commercial. Your content stops playing, the ad starts, and then continues on afterwards. Then you also have nonlinear ads. These run concurrently with your content. So these would be banners along the top or side. They can be overlays directly on the video window or bugs. And they can be interactive or non-interactive. So really quickly, to set the stage, I have a demo from Panache. And this will demonstrate a little bit about in-stream advertising. And the cool thing about this demo is it's going to show flash ads over top of Silverlight. That's an important concept for the short term because there just aren't that many ads created in Silverlight yet because it's fairly new technology. And so using flash ads over Silverlight is a good way to get started, be able to use a Silverlight player but take advantage of ads regardless of where they come from. Wait for it. Let's see here. There we go. So now we have an interactive overlay that's come up on the bottom. And just to demonstrate, you can see this is a Silverlight player, but you can see that Adobe Flash is what's providing the ad. Now if we click on this banner, it's going to turn into a full interactive display. So now, as opposed to just a standard linear ad, we're able to interact with this and then close it whenever we want to get back to the original content.
So we're going to play for $65,000.
So now some of the formats. Linear is usually broken into pre, mid, and post rolls. So pre obviously comes before your content. A mid roll is like a commercial that can be inserted at different points throughout your content, and then post roll at the end. And then those can be interactive or non-interactive. Nonlinear, you've got overlays, overlay takeovers like we saw from Panache, and then bugs, which can be just small ads that overlay over your content. Then we also have the concept of companion ad units. A companion ad unit could be a banner that's associated with the linear content, so that as the end user is seeing a commercial for something, the banners will be synchronized and will go along with that content to really tie everything together. And that can even be expanded into using skinning and branding of your player and of your page, so that as an ad comes up, that advertiser can reskin your application to really tie the brand together and then revert back to your normal application skin once the ad is complete. So here's an example of a linear ad. This is part of the demo that I'll be showing later. An interactive linear ad where you've got different click areas. And by the way, an interactive ad could be written directly in Silverlight or Flash, so that can be delivered as a zap or as a Swift file. Here we've got an overlay at the bottom of the screen. As we saw from the Panache demo, an interactive overlay. And then here's a companion banner where we've got a linear ad and then a banner that's synchronized with it. Now finally, scanning as a concept with companion ads. Here we've got the Jameson whiskey ad at the side. And then here's the same application, but with an ad that has completely branded and skinned the player. So you can see the difference in the impact that you get. It really ties it together and helps that advertiser promote without interrupting what the user is seeing. So I touched a little bit on compatibility. Of course, we can do Silverlight ads on a Silverlight player, but a lot of people don't realize that you can do Flash ads on a Silverlight player. So again, this is very important to take advantage in the short term, because you might not be able to find an ad server that can give you all the units you need in Silverlight format. Silverlight on Flash is not something that works today. So really your best bet with a player application to take advantage of ads now and later is a Silverlight player. So why video advertising? Marketers love video. Video gives higher CPM, so you make more money off of a video ad, both for an impression and for a click, as compared to something like a static banner ad. And then for scaling, a pre-roll ad, which is the most common, does not scale with increased consumption. So the longer your content is, the less impact and the less money you can make off of pre-roll ads. So it's important to look at adopting the whole range of in-stream advertising so that you can continue to insert mid-rolls, companions, and try to take advantage of the entire viewing time. As you can see, when you effectively use in-stream advertising, the amount of revenue you can get per clip can go up as the length of the clip increases rather than going down. And revenue has been shown to improve with long-form video content and high-resolution, high-definition video. So this is something that fits well with smooth streaming and adaptive edge, and we'll show a little bit of a demo of that as well. So for some of the applications, there are two ways that you can go here. One is with an end-to-end solution, like the demo I showed you from Panache, where they have a full platform for workflow and management of your ads, and they can help you from the beginning to the end to create a solution around advertising. The other way that we'll go through is an open solution, where you can pull together all the different standard-based formats in advertising and an open player such as Open Video Player, and tie these together and do some of the work yourself and end up with a very robust solution. So a little bit of an overview on Panache, and Bill from Panache is here today and has some handouts, so if you're interested after the show, you can get some from them. Panache is an infrastructure solution for generating ad revenues and has a full platform. support unlimited ad veils and insertions, and they have professional services to make sure that you get everything done right and to fill in any gaps that you might have on the technology side. What they try to do is align the technical team with sales and operations and give you a way that marketers and sales can insert ads and do a lot of this work without having to use the technical team. Panache is also able to be integrated with OVP, Open Video Player, and they support Flash on Silverlight and Silverlight on Silverlight. So here's a screenshot of the Panache creation tool, compatible with any ad format and syndication models. So if you're using something like RSS or Media RSS to deliver your content, this is compatible. And it's designed for long form, short form, HD, really any type of video or media you can throw at it. And Panache has pre-built out-of-the-box ad products. So they've got 8 IAB standard formats that are ready to use, but then they can also help you use just about any type of ad format you can come up with. So here's another example of a lower third overlay. And IAB, by the way, is the Interactive Advertising Bureau, and they're a standards agency. We'll talk a little bit more about some of their standards, VAST and VPAID, that affect in-stream advertising. So now we're going to go through an open solution and kind of piece together in the technical, the fun way of putting this all together. First, for the media player, we'll be using Open Video Player. In addition to working at Akamai, I'm also a developer on Open Video Player, which is an open source project. For an ad connector, we'll be using VAST. VAST is a standard from the IAB, and it describes what the ad is. The ad player. OVP has different ad handlers, and so these are the players that would overlay your video player. It can be challenging sometimes to take an ad and play it in the same player that your content is. In the case of smooth streaming or adaptive edge, you might lose context of where you are, what bit rate you're at. You might have to rebuffer. And so by using an ad handler or an ad player over top of your original player, you can pause the content, display the linear ad in Flash or Silverlight, and then hide that or remove it and continue on where your ad left off. And it makes for a much more seamless experience. For an ad server, we'll be using Microsoft Atlas ad server. And I put various there as well because in the in-stream advertising industry, ads tend to come from a lot of places. So you might communicate with Atlas or Microsoft ad servers, and then behind the scenes, you're getting ads from multiple agencies. Now, a sequencing engine. We have an initiative at Open Video Player called MAST. This stands for Media Abstract Sequencing Template. What we saw in the industry is whenever anybody had to implement ads, what tended to happen is they would build kind of an ad hoc sequencing engine right in their player every time. So there was a lot of work that was being done over and over again by different people as they customized their player to know when to initiate an ad, whether it's a pre-roll, a companion banner, or a mid-roll. So we decided, in the spirit of Open Video Player, to try to do some of that work in a standard way so that it can be reproduced and used over and over again with a standard format. So MAST is a document format that describes your sequencing as well as an engine that acts upon it. We'll talk about that more as well. And then finally, for ad player communication, we have what's called VPAID. This is another standard by the IAB. And what it really is in object-oriented programming terms is an interface. So this is an interface that's implemented by the ad creative or by the ad player, so your media player knows how to talk to it. And that way, when your player resizes or the user goes full screen, you can communicate that to the ad, and it knows how to resize itself. You can pass through commands like pause, seek, mute, whatever you like. So it gives you a way to talk to the ad without having to write that from scratch for every bit of ad creative that you might get from an ad agency. So a little more about Open Video Player. It's an open source media player. It targets Silverlight 2.0. We've got 3.0 support on the way, so hopefully we'll have that out by the time it gets released, and we'll have some previews of it. And right now with Silverlight 2.0, it uses the theming system from the Silverlight toolkit. This was a really important part of what we tried to do with OVP, because in order to adopt a video player, you want to have the look and feel that reflects your site, your brand, your company. And So by doing this, with the theming system from the Silverlight toolkit, we're able to load a XAML theme at runtime. So you can use a binary version of OVP and update it when new releases come out and still apply your own theme to it and not even have to recompile the player. This is also important when we get to companion ads. I talked about being able to skin or brand the player. Using the theming system here, we're able to take in a XAML theme as part of an ad unit and then apply that to the player dynamically to reflect the ad and then revert back to our original theme. OVP supports progressive and live streaming, a lot of different ways to get the media in, such as RSS feeds, playlist formats like the playlist that comes out of Expression Encoder, and then wrapper formats like ASX. We also have an extensible plugin system. And again, this happens at runtime, so you're able to write or use plugins made for OVP, and by specifying them in the init params of your Silverlight object or by applying them from JavaScript, you can load them at runtime. Some of the plugins would be ad connectors, so a way to talk to an ad that's coming in the VAST format, for example. Sequencing engine, the masked sequencing engine that I talked about, is implemented as a plugin. There are plugins that are going to be coming for analytics and tracking. And then you can also use a plugin for a new protocol or container format. And a perfect example of that is Adaptive Edge and Smooth Streaming, where we've got a new protocol in a way that's based on HTTP using the chunked format. If you weren't able to attend Alex Zambelli or John Butrov's sessions, I encourage you to look at them online. There's some great overviews of smooth streaming and some of the great new stuff coming up. So now on to VAST. VAST is Video Ad Serving Template, an IAB recommended format. And the best way to think of this is as the what of the ad. So this just describes what ad units you have to work with. It doesn't tell you anything about where to position them. It doesn't tell you anything about when to use them. And that's important because you want to be able to reuse that ad unit as much as possible. So this way, the same ad unit could be used as a pre-roll in one situation, a mid-roll in another. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. And this way, by using VAST, you don't necessarily have to write to a different format in order to talk to another ad server. So it's a way of standardizing an industry that in the past have had a lot of proprietary formats. VAST gives you the links to your ad creative. So that could be an MMS link, a WMV link, an Adaptive Edge or Smooth Streaming link. It'll give you the tracking and click-through URLs. And it also gives you companion ads, such as banners, interactive banners, and things like a XAML theme. And VAST is served by a lot of different ad servers, and if they don't have VAST support, they'll probably have it soon. MAST, Media Abstract Sequencing Template, this is a pre-standard effort by OVP. So we started this in-house, and it's just now coming out to the first pre-release. This is one of the first public mentions of it, so it's very young still, but we're working hard on it and hope to have some stuff released soon. And we're encouraging people to talk to us about it if you're a partner that might be interested in participating. Similar to VAST, it's a flexible XML format, and this gives you the sequencing. So it gives you a sequence of triggers, and each trigger has a source element that links to a payload, such as VAST. So when the trigger fires, it tells you, okay, here's this VAST ad, pull it down and act upon it. It has a target element so that once you decide to act upon a VAST ad, you know where to put it. You can specify a target element for a place for a banner to go or for a linear ad or any combination. And then the most important part is you have different conditions based on variables and events. So within a trigger, you could have a condition that says on new playlist item trigger, or when the position of the player is greater than 30 seconds, then trigger, and that'll give you a mid-roll. You can stack conditions together so that a condition could be after 30 seconds trigger this, but only after a certain date and only before another date, so that you can apply a masked document only for a certain period of time. So you can group these together and do and ors, so it's very powerful. The masked document would be provided to the player with the content, so it could be part of your RSS feed, or it could just be applied to the object in your HTML page. Ad servers. So Microsoft provides video ad solutions all across the advertising board here. And they've got first-party publisher tools and advertiser tools. And they're player agnostic, so they can work with a Microsoft player, with a Silverlight player, something like Open Video Player, or even a Flash player. Their tools give you control and visibility over the video ad campaigns, and also a reporting dashboard so you can see what's happening with your advertising. VPAID. VPAID is the last component we'll talk about, and that stands for Video Player Ad Interface Definition, kind of a weird acronym. This is a recommendation in progress, so like MAST, I want to warn you that this isn't fully standard yet, and anything based on it is subject to change. But there's enough of it there that we felt it was important to introduce it, because it's going to be a very useful tool when putting together a standards-based approach. So this is an interface, like I said, that defines methods, properties, and events for the ad creative or the ad player. This would be implemented by the ad player. It's not necessarily needed for things like basic linear content or companion banners, but even in those cases, you can use it. It can still be useful in those cases because you can communicate to the ad to resize, for example, and give it the information it knows to scale itself appropriately. So to put this together and kind of explain how all of these crazy acronyms come together to give you an ad workflow, I've got some slides here. To start out with, you'll have your HTML page, and you'll get your content URL or feed and your VAST and MAST links, and those go to your Silverlight player. In this case, we're using OVP. Now, our media content is coming from our CDN. In this case, we'll be using the Akamai CDN. And now you'll render output to your user. Then the OVP player will load the sequencing module for MAST, and that'll act upon your triggers. When a trigger fires, it'll find an appropriate ad connector to deal with that trigger. In this case, we'll be using VAST, and it can pull down a VAST document that describes the ads that you want to act upon. Now we use VPAID to talk to the ad that we received. It could be an interactive ad, which would be a SWIF or a ZAP that could implement VPAID directly. Or if we get linear content like a WMV or an FLV file, then we would load the appropriate ad player that knew how to talk VPAID. It would load the content for us, and then we would talk to the ad player. So now the content comes from your ad CDN, which could be your ad server, it could be your media CDN, or however it's configured. And then finally, the ad connector will make the appropriate tracking calls so that the ad server knows when the user has seen the ad, when it's gotten to the midpoint, when it's completed, when any clicks are made, and so on, so that you can get paid for showing this ad. So now, developing a solution. I'm going to walk through some of the demo now. And what we're going to do is start with the Open Video Player config tool and show you some of the options that it has, insert some plugins, try some different themes, show some of the options in the init params for your player. Then we'll go through the OVP solution a little bit. We'll build the ZAP file, open the plugin solution, build some of the plugins so that we can take advantage of the ads. And then we'll have a few other things. If time permits, I'll even show putting together a demo of Flash ads over top of Silverlight. So with that, let me try to switch over here. All right. So I'm going to start with the Open Video Player configuration tool. This is available on our project page on SourceForge, and it's also part of the project, so you can run it locally. It's just a basic HTML page that gives you a lot of different options. As you change these options, they're going to reflect in the embed code at the bottom. So it gives you all you need to insert OVP into a page without having to necessarily know the names and the values of all the parameters. So to start out with, let's select some basic canned content that we have here, and we'll preview the player just to see what it looks like.
What are you doing?
Should we pick them up?
So this is the default skin of the Open Video Player. It's playing an RSS feed that has a few different commercials. You can see it's got all the basic elements you would expect in a player. And the key part about Open Video Player is it's very customizable from your theme or by actually getting in and digging into the code since it's open source. Now I'd like to show Smooth HD in case you didn't catch some of the sessions that showed this off. Smooth HD is a demonstration site that we did with with some of the partners like Microsoft to show off the new smooth streaming technology. And Smooth HD uses smooth streaming in order to adapt to the client conditions and give you the best content that you can possibly get, considering your bandwidth limitations and also your CPU. It's able to do the CPU calculations by measuring how many frames were rendered versus how many were dropped. Since Silverlight, for privacy reasons and security reasons, doesn't give you direct access into CPU. So you can see we've got full screen controls. And Smooth HD, the reason I'm really showing this is this was also based off of Open Video Player. So we used OVP, we created a custom skin for it, and then applied a little bit of extra code to put together the channel list and the playlist here. So now I'm going to close Smooth HD, and as part of the demonstration on SourceForge, we have some themes like the one used for Smooth HD. So now I've applied a different theme.
What are you doing?
We're using the same binary player that's already compiled and up there, but now it's just pulling down a different XAML theme, and we're able to totally change the look and feel, in this case reflecting what was used for Smooth HD. We also have options for a lot of the different themes that were provided with the Silverlight toolkit. So in the case of Expression Dark, this will make the player look kind of like the Expression products like Expression Blend. And then we also have the nice gaudy ones like Shiny Red. All right. So now you've got a little bit of a taste for what the themes look like. We're going to start putting this together into a player. So now in order to take advantage of Adaptive Edge and smooth streaming content, we need to load a plugin that knows how to deal with that new format. So I can just insert the URL to any plugins I'd like to load here. And then I'm going to change the player size to reflect our demo. All right, and I've got a special theme that I made for Mix, so we're going to set it to no theme, and then I'll grab one that I've got somewhere else. So now I'm going to take this object code, and I'm going to start with some really complicated HTML here. So I'll zoom in on that just in case you need to take any notes. Really, really tough stuff here. Going very, very simple. Where on earth is the insert on this keyboard? There we go. So now we have our object tag on the HTML. We're loading our Adaptive Edge plugin, and you can see in the init params some different values based on what we set in the tool. It's set to show statistics, autoplay, muted as false. Plugins, it's loading Adaptive Edge, and then we've got a feed source here. Now I've got a new feed that we're going to use that has some smooth streaming content. See, this is just a standard RSS feed, and we'll be using the Big Buck Bunny content that has been used several times throughout Mix. We didn't plan that, but Big Buck Bunny and its creators have certainly gotten a lot of publicity for this. So I'm just going to replace the RSS feed with a different one that I have and save this. So now we've got our HTML file. You can see I've just got this in the www root of an IAS installation on my local system. And now I'll open up the Open Video Player solution. This is broken down into several projects. The main Open Video Player project. We've got OVP definitions, which has some of the basic interfaces and classes that are needed by anything that uses OVP. And this is the only project that a plugin needs to know about. So if you write a third-party plugin, it just needs that OVP definition so that it can implement the plugin interface. And then it can be loaded at runtime by the player. You see, we have a few plugins here. We've got the Vast Ad Handler and the Mass Sequencing plugin. We'll be taking advantage of those. So now I'm going to build this. All right. First thing we need is the OVP zap. I'll paste that in. And then now I need the Adaptive Edge plugin, which I have a link to here. The plugins can really live anywhere. They can be on a different server. They can be in a different subdirectory, just based on how you specify the URL here. So I'm just going to put it in the same folder. I think that's everything we need here. All right. So let's try this and see what happens.
Should we pick him up? Yes, but
That's not the feed I wanted, though, so let's make sure that I copied that in correctly. Okay, now we've got it. Okay, here we go. So now we've got Big Buck Bunny playing with Adaptive Edge and Microsoft Smooth Streaming in the Open Video Player. You can see, because we told the player to show statistics, we've got the statistics window at the top. It gives us some information about what the status of the player is, the resolution that's in use, our frame drop, current bit rate, and then all of the available bit rates that are in this file, and the available bandwidth that the heuristics on the client side are measuring, so it knows what chunk to request next. We can also expand this out and get to the logs and get more details. So now we've got our content. Now we need to get some ads in there. So I'm going to pause this. And I've got some cheat notes here to let me know the names of the plugins. So in addition to the Adaptive Edge plugin, we're going to load the Mast and the Vast plugins. There we go. And now from our solution, we need to find those plugin files. And paste those in. So now we have the right plugins to make this work, but we still need a mass document because we need a way to tell the player what sequencing to use and when to load an ad. I just happen to have a link to one. So here's a mass document, a pretty simple format. You can see we have a list of triggers. And to start with the first trigger, it's got an ID and a description. And then here's the source URI. So this is a link to a VAST document from our ad server, and this is what we're going to act upon when the sequencing takes place. You can see there's also a format attribute that lets the player know that that's in the VAST format because the URI doesn't always indicate that. Then we have a target region called banner 1 of type banner, so it knows that if it finds any banner companions, that's where it needs to put them. And then we just have one simple condition that's based on an event called onItemStart. So whenever a new item starts in the player, it's going to initiate this VAST document and apply it to the player to show an ad. So this is really describing a pre-roll. We also have a duration indicating 30 seconds, just so the ad doesn't fire more often than that in case we have very short content. Then we also have another trigger for mid-roll at 30 seconds. I've just got one VAST tag for the example here, so I'm using the same ad, same banner. The only difference here is the condition. In this case, instead of applying it to an event, the condition is based on a property. The property name is position, and the value is 30 seconds. The operator is greater than or equal to. So as the player, the MAST engine rather, works on this MAST document, it'll continue to evaluate all of these triggers to find out if one's ready to fire. In this case, it would check the position of the player and compare it using the operator we've specified with 30 seconds. And you can use all the different operators you'd expect, like equal, not equal, greater, lesser than, as well as mod. And so if we used a mod there, it would show this mid-roll every 30 seconds. So you've got a lot of flexibility. I'm going to save this mass document down to mass.xml. And so now that's in the same location as our player. And the last thing I need to do is tell the player how to find this mass document. I've also got a little cheat here for that. So we've got another parameter that we're going to paste in here that's going to tell the mask sequencing plugin where to find the mask document. And you can see that this init param is namespaced to masked, and that's how the player knows to pass this parameter through to the plugin rather than trying to use the value itself. Oh, thank you. Good catch. So we'll save this. And now we're going to reload our page and cross our fingers and see what happens. Okay, our content stopped. That's a good sign. And what do you know? Here's our ad. So the mask sequencing engine found that mask document. It saw that there was an event on item start. It triggered that event, pulled down the VAST document, and found some linear content, in this case an Xbox ad. So it's going to play this. And while it's playing the ad, OVP goes into ad mode. And so if you decide to apply the video to the main window without covering the controls, you can see that I can't make any changes to the seek. I can pause, but I can't skip through and past this ad unless you configure it that you'd like to. Now once the ad completes, we're back onto our content. Now I also had a mid-roll trigger specified in my mask document. So when we get to 30 seconds, we should see the same ad again. I'm just going to try to skip past it. You can see, because I skipped past that point, it immediately triggered as greater than or equal to 30 seconds in the position, and it fires the same ad. Now let's take a look at the VAST document that we're pulling down. Here's the VAST that we're using. It's coming from the Atlas ad server. It's got some links for impression and tracking events so that the VAST ad handler knows how to tell the server when different things happen. And then it's got a list of video ads. And one of the nice things about VAST is it's able to deliver multiple video types in the same document. So in this case, it's telling us that we've got a streaming link to an FLV, we've got a progressive download link to an FLV, and then several that are in different bit rates. You can see they're the same resolution, but varying bit rates. So the player can make a lot of decisions based on the size it is on the page. We have plans to use the bit rate that's in use by smooth streaming and use that to find the appropriate bit rate in the VAST ad so that you can try to reflect the quality that the user is seeing in the main content in their ads as well, so that the ads don't contrast too much with the quality level. Now you can also see that we've got WMV ads. So in this case, what's happening is mask triggers, it pulls down the VAST document, and then the VAST ad handler looks at all of these different types and picks the most appropriate one. In this case, we don't have a flash ad player, so it's skipping past all of those, and when it finds a WMV, it says, hey, I know how to play a WMV, so it pulls that down and plays the ad for us. Now we also have companion ads specified here. We've got a couple different banners at different sizes, but we didn't see any banners in use when we saw our demo. The reason for that is we didn't have a region for them. If you remember in the mask document, pull this back up, we specified a target region of banner 1. So the player is going to look for something called banner 1, and that could be in the player or it could be out of the player. Because of the abilities that Silverlight has to work with the document model in the browser and with JavaScript, the player can place the ads anywhere on your page, even if it's not in the Silverlight container. So now what we're going to do is make sure that we have a place for that ad to load. And again, I've got a little cheat here. I'm going to just copy this into our HTML page. First, I'm going to center our content just so it looks a little prettier. I know that center tags are deprecated, but I'm just old school like that, so we're going to use them anyway. So now I put in a div, and then an href to give us a way to click and link on the banner, and then just an image tag so that when Silverlight loads that banner, it can find an ID called banner 1, and it knows to put the companion banner there. And the div specifies the size, and that gives us a way to look up in the VAST document and find the banner that's most appropriate to the size that we have on the page. So now just by putting that there and making no other changes, we should be able to see that. Load the same page back up, and there we go. So now the companion ad is loading because when the VAST document is parsed, it finds the region that matches the companion banner in the VAST doc. Now if we click on either one of these, VAST gives us the tracking and click-through URLs, and so we're able to open through and open the link to the advertiser's page. It's also firing those events for first quartile and midway and completion so that you can get paid based on the user only seeing a part of the ad. Okay, so now we've got our banner, we've got our mid-roll and our pre-roll linear ad, so we've got a pretty full solution here, and it only took us a few minutes. So now that since we've got a little bit of time, I'm going to try to get some flash ads working here. This is something that we just whipped up for Mix. Oops. One thing I forgot to do is I've got my Mix theme that I put together for OVP. So let's add that before I forget. This is a XAML file, and we'll even open that up real quick just to see what it looks like. So a XAML theme is based on the Silverlight toolkit. Is really just a bunch of styles that apply to different types. So you could have a style that applies to all buttons, or a style that just applies to a specific button by its key or its ID. And those are all grouped together. In this case, what I did is you can see it's copyright Microsoft. This is one of the themes that was provided with the toolkit. And I just tweaked it a little bit to show off my design skills and to get into the spirit of Mix. And so now we just need to specify the theme here. We had originally told the configuration tool not to apply a theme, so we don't have the parameter here for it. So I just need to tell it to look in theme, to look at mix.xaml for the theme. So we'll save that and give it a shot. All right. So don't stare at the screen too long. We don't want you to get screen burn on your retinas. But I took the mix colors from the presentation format and applied them here, trying to make it as gaudy as possible. And you can see how I was able to easily apply a theme that reflected on buttons wherever they were, even up here, to the slider bar, to the volume control bar. And changing that theme only took maybe 5 or 10 minutes. So it's very easy to put together a new theme, which also means it's very easy for an advertiser to create a new theme that can be provided with your VAST document so that you can, again, reflect the theme of your advertisement as it's playing in your player. All right, so now on to Flash. In order to load the Flash ad player, we have to put it on our page somewhere ahead of time so that when the VAST document sees Flash ads, it can look at the page and know that there's a player there that's compatible. So we're just going to paste that object on there. And then it's a little bit tricky to communicate between Silverlight and Flash. You can't talk directly to it. And so I've also got just a little bit of JavaScript to help us implement vPaid. So when we try to use vPaid as that interface to talk between the player and the ad, we have a few methods that are really essential, like start, loaded, and complete. I'm just going to paste those on my page as well. And so now what's going to happen is when the player is ready to communicate with the ad, it'll look and try to find a JavaScript function that matches the vPaid interface, and it'll just call that function. And then in the JavaScript function, it'll find the ad player and then call the appropriate function on the ad player. So we're able to communicate back and forth. And then by the same token, when the ad needs to fire an event, it'll look for a JavaScript function that's named that event, like complete or loaded, and then that'll be applied back to the player. So that gives us our bridge of communication between the two. And now the last thing that we need is the Flash player itself, which is a Swift file. And we're going to save that down. I've had an ongoing issue where the security doesn't quite jive here and the player doesn't work, so I'm just going to make sure that that's all set correctly. And now I think we have everything in place. I'm going to give this another shot. Oops. Oh, now I did it. There we go. All right. So now you see we have essentially the same experience. but this is using the OVP flash ad player. So now we're delivering a flash ad through to Silverlight. You can see we had some weird flashing, some weird stuff going on there. The reason for that is that I forgot one thing. In order to play a flash ad over top of Silverlight, we need to set a couple more parameters on our object tag. We need to make it transparent and set it to windowless mode. And this way the flash ad player can overlay completely and they won't be competing to try to show through. So those are a few more parameters that I just need to apply to our object tag. There we go. So now we'll get a lot less of that weird artifacting. So now same experience, and what's happening here is when mask triggers the VAST document, it pulls down the VAST document and looks through the different ad types. And as I showed you, we have FLVs as well as WMVs. And so we've got a preference in the VAST ad handler right now to look for the closest bit rate to what we're capable of doing and to always prefer streaming or smooth streaming content over progressive download. And so in this case, the FLV ad is the most preferred. And so in that case, the VAST ad handler looks at the page to make sure that we're loading a flash ad handler that's able to play this. It finds it, and so instead of using the WMV link like we did before, it's now using the FLV. Like I said, the flash ad player here is pre-release. It's something that we just whipped up for the conference here, but we plan on expanding it out. In addition to being able to play flash video content like RTMP and FLVs, it will also be able to handle interactive content like SWIFTs. So if you've got ads that have been created in an interactive way with a flash SWIFT, this flash ad player will load that and host it for you so that you don't have to learn how to talk to each one of these ads. As long as they implement vPaid, you're ready to go. So I think that's everything we have for the demo here. So let's switch back over to the presentation. Okay, so future developments. One thing that's going to be very important to delivering ads is Silverlight 3. The whole reason that we need this flash over Silverlight in a lot of cases is because there's not as much ad creative in Silverlight yet. One thing that will help this is Silverlight 3 being able to play H.264 and having support for custom decoders. And so, in theory, someone could write a decoder that could handle FLV content, and you could host that directly in Silverlight. Or if it's encoded as H.264, then ad creative designers can make ads that can play in both Flash and Silverlight, since there's now parity between the two for a common format. Another item is the new plug-in communication that's coming in Silverlight 3, being able to talk between different Silverlight instances on the page or in different pages. So this could make vPaid easier as you need to talk to that ad creative. It could be in a totally different Silverlight object somewhere else on your page or on a different page even, and you can still communicate through with it. And then finally, you've got performance considerations. Silverlight 3 is going to improve performance considerably, and so in the case of ads, even if they're not adaptive edge or smooth streaming, you'll be able to play the higher bit rate in a lot of cases and still get good rendering performance. Some other items to call out: vPaid and MAST, like I mentioned, are specifications in progress, so before you base too much around them, make sure that you keep checking for the latest updates and see what's going on there. And then with Open Video Player, we're going to be releasing new ad players and format connectors so that we can talk to different types of ad servers and consume different types of ad units. So that's going to expand out what you're able to do with this open solution without having to write too much code yourself. So another demo that we have to show some solutions, we have one from I Wonder here. And this was a proof of concept that they did to show ads in Silverlight a while back.
Stock fashion, stock stage.
Let's turn the volume down. Okay. As we skip through here, this is going to show a couple ad unit types that we haven't really seen yet. One of which is the splat bug. Again, this is based on Open Video Player, so we've got a custom theme for Open Video Player that was used. And in this case, the buttons and a little bit more was changed about the look and feel experience. So we'll just let this play for a second.
Okay? I want them to fly away. Okay?
And now in this case, we have a context-sensitive product placement ad. So as she's using the makeup, now we get a splat bug for oil Olay. And you can see the different advertisers called out here, and Olay increased in size when that ad played. So some unique things that call out to that advertiser without being too obtrusive to the content.
Today, Uber is standing by line. What's going on down there, Ray?
Hello? Can you hear me?
And another case is we have an interactive ad overlay here as well. And here we go. So now you can see that based on the context of the content that was playing, we now have an interactive ad overlay. And these are all delivered as Silverlight over Silverlight. So we've talked a lot about the Open Video Player standards-based solution using VAST, vPaid, MAST. We used a Microsoft Atlas ad server, an Akamai CDN using smooth streaming technology. And we also have a link to Open Video Player /Mix, and that's going to give these an example of these demos so you can check them out later. There's a link to the presentation, and we'll also have the source code that we used here using the pre-releases of vPaid and MAST as well as our VAST implementation. But those are not finalized yet, so again, check back with our main project page to look for an official release as those mature. So thanks to Panache for putting together the demo and coming out here. We've got some contact information, and again, Bill has some handouts if you haven't gotten one already. And some other resources, of course, Silverlight, an Open Video Player, advertising.microsoft.com. They've got a lot of resources there. The IAB, Interactive Ad Bureau, and they provide the standards of VAST and vPaid for us and do a lot of other work on defining ad units so that there's commonality between what's displayed and trying to make the most out of the advertising without being too obtrusive to the user. We've got the link to Panache, to Akamai, and to iWonder that provided the demo with some of the custom ad types. So at this time, I'd like to take questions. Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Robert, and I work for Yahoo, actually doing some stuff very similar to this, and was curious as to how you deal with the off-network situations. For example, MySpace and Facebook, ads, these kind of complicated advertising systems on a site where you can't necessarily have multiple objects or support for JavaScript.
Yeah, great question. That's something that we haven't looked at too much. We've just started simple, tried to implement as many standards as possible and to make them work in an effective way. But since Open Video Player is an open source project, we're looking for people that might have those same problems that can come to us and give us feedback and help us implement some of those. So definitely check out our project page, and there are some forums there. You can post some questions and some comments, and hopefully we can start a dialogue on how to tackle some of those more challenging situations.
Would I be able to follow up with one
Sure.
other question? Sometimes advertisers are a little bit lazy, and some of these more complicated advertising formats, they require the advertiser to do a lot more work, potentially providing multiple sizes of creatives, multiple formats for their creatives, and also advertisers are very picky. If you don't show the companion banner that they want you to show, and the player might not even be designed to have that much space available. You might only have a small banner, the standard 480 by 60, and they want to have a skyscraper ad or a big, big ad in the corner, and they would get very irritated if you did not show that advertisement, even though that you don't have, they didn't provide to you the different aspect ratios and formats to show an ad in the particular player that you're using.
Yeah, that's a great comment and observation. Ad creative design has been very challenging in the past. They've got limited resources to try to crank out ads as fast as possible, and in a lot of cases the ads are vastly different from one to the next. And so that's where we saw the situation where a lot of code is being written to try to sequence these all in unique ways and to try to communicate with interactive ads that all might talk totally differently. And so that's where the solutions VAST, VPaid, and MAST really become more important. VAST can give you all the different ad format types and let you know whether you've got a choice between something like a top banner or a skyscraper on the side, or if they're mandatory and you have to show both. And in that case, you can also have a mechanism where if an ad unit's delivered to you that you can't handle, you can reject it and call for another ad unit. And so that's one solution there. VPaid can help that by giving you that common interface. It'll take some time for this to trickle through the industry, but eventually ad creative agencies will be forced to use VPaid in order for people to interact with their ads. Once that really gets through the industry, you'll have that common way of talking to the ads so that if you don't have the right size, you can tell the ad to resize, and it can let you know whether it was able to do that or whether it wasn't. And then finally, something to address that is MAST. In the case where you mentioned sometimes you can't show a companion, but the advertiser is very particular that if you show their linear, you have to show the companion and vice versa. If you don't show both in the way that they wanted, you might not get paid for it. So MAST has a concept of being able to stack triggers and targets underneath of one another. So instead of having a target for your linear ad and then a target for your companion, you can nest them. And what that indicates is a dependency. So if one of them fails, it won't trigger the other, or vice versa. And there are a lot of other little tricks you can do with the format so that you can make those decisions, and if one format fails, you can continue on to another or request a whole new ad tag. Oh, good question. Yes, sir?
Maybe you could answer the security question. Can Silverlight interact with the DOM object, the JavaScript DOM object on the page?
Yes, Silverlight can. Through HTML page, which is a class in the framework, you can talk directly to the document model. You can do an eval on JavaScript code, so just like doing a JavaScript eval function and just pass arbitrary JavaScript code to it. But when we tried to talk directly to something like the Flash object, it didn't work well for us, and so that's why we had that JavaScript bridge in between them. So what's happening there when Silverlight's talking to Flash is it knows the name of the VPaid function that it needs to call, and so it just does an eval on it. And if the function is there, it'll call it on the page. If the function's not there, it'll just throw an exception that we'll catch and continue on, assuming that it wasn't implemented. An ad's not required to implement every VPaid function.
I got a question on the Flash overlay that you showed. Was that done using the Flash player SWF, or?
Yes. So what we did there, in order to consume the FLV that VAST tag was giving us, is we wrote a Flash application that was essentially just a very basic Flash video player with no controls, and it implements that VPaid interface. So instead of using controls directly on it, we would call through JavaScript to tell it when to pause or mute or skip.
Right. But you showed earlier where you put a Flash banner that's interactive. Was that done through the same mechanism, or?
No, that was done separately by Panache. I'm not sure the exact technical mechanisms they use to do that. They have really an end-to-end solution.
Okay. Where
in the case of Open Video Player, this will be part of our open source that's available on our project page. And right now, the Flash ad player can just handle linear content types like an FLV or an F4V, but we'll be expanding it to also be able to host another SWIFT within itself. And so you could take that same Flash ad player and do an interactive side banner or what have you, and what would happen is it would get a SWIFT from your VAST call and host it within the other SWIFT. And that way you only have to talk to one thing. You don't have to try to talk to all these different ad units. You just talk to the one Flash ad player, and it passes the communication along.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thanks. Yes?
It appears that triggers is kind of not so suitable for a dynamic environment where you have real-time streams. Let's take the use case of a Formula One race being broadcasted live, and whenever it's a Ferrari car in the picture, you want to show a chill ad.
Yep, good observation. In the case of VAST and MAST, those document formats in XML are able to be generated dynamically in the same way that an RSS feed is generated dynamically in a lot of cases by putting together the right XML at the right time. And so in this case, we used a static MAST document and just saved it right on our site, and you're right, it's very static. It couldn't change for a live event. But there are other mechanisms we could use to get that mass document. It could come in our RSS feed, or it could be passed through really whatever mechanism you can get it to the player. So it could be that your encoding system for live is able to generate a mass document, or you can generate it through a different server and pass it through to the player and update the mass document that it has. And you can always update the mass document in progress. If you use the same ID for a trigger, it'll know to replace an existing trigger with a new one. So if the conditions change and you decide to sequence in a different way, you can just apply a new mass document while the player is loaded on the page. Yes?
This is a bit outside of your presentation, but still on the topic of Silverlight. I'm wondering, let's say you have a bunch of things that are, you have your video, but then other things that you've added to the video, let's say the ads or whatever other things you want to incorporate into your presentation. Do you know if it's possible to take that output and pump it out as something else, not necessarily out to the user, but to transcode whatever it is that you've compiled and take that compilation and have an output that you could save or manipulate?
I don't think I'm completely following the whole situation you're describing, so maybe after the conference come up we can talk about it some more. But the first thing that comes to mind, if you saw the Silverlight 3 preview that Joe Stegman did, one of the new features is with bit mapping in Silverlight 3, you can capture and create a bitmap dynamically. And he gave an example where by clicking on the video window, it would take a bitmap snapshot of that and then apply it somewhere else to the page, or even let the user save that snapshot. And so that might be something along the lines of what you're looking to do. But yeah, come talk to me afterwards and we can figure out if there's something else. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much for coming out this early. So I encourage you to, if you haven't dealt with in-stream advertising, to go build something. We've got the link here where we've got this demo. We're going to have the source code. I need to package it up and upload it still, so the link doesn't go anywhere yet. But by the end of the day, we'll have the source code for everything that we did here up there and available to try out. And please fill out the evaluations and let us know how we did. Thank you very much.